I typically like to save these Q&A videos for a rainy day, and the video I had planned for today is being pushed back to January for reasons, and you'll find out later. But today's video is going to be a Q&A video. We're going to catch up, talk about a few things that maybe we wouldn't normally talk about, or at least I wouldn't do a whole video about. I'm answering your questions, so thank you to everybody who sent in questions. I appreciate all of you, and thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you need a website, go to squarespace.com/mattday. For now, let's jump into your questions. Number 1, how do you stay motivated in a small town as a photographer looking for interesting things to photograph? For me, it's not necessarily about staying motivated or finding ways to motivate me or inspire me. It's really just about like getting out of my own way and letting myself sort of find whatever it is I'm looking for along the way. And I hate how undefined and vague that sounds because I like concise and clear, like actionable tips and stuff. So this might not be the answer that you're looking for if you feel stuck or unmotivated or uninspired by, your local surroundings. For me, that's like what I've always just been drawn to making pictures of, but that's not the case for everybody. So I always say start off with just asking yourself a lot of questions that might seem obvious, or maybe it seems like not worth taking the time to answer these questions because they're just too sort of obvious or vague or broad. But if you just ask yourself, like, why are you making pictures in the first place? Why do you carry your camera around? Why do you go look for stuff? Is it to make pictures that, other people are going to like? Is it to make pictures that say something from your perspective or your voice? If you don't find anything interesting in your local area or your local surroundings, if that's not giving you motivation or inspiration, don't photograph it. Don't spend your time looking for inspiration there if you've already been doing that and it's just not speaking to you. Go photograph some other place that's completely unrelated, or look for some sort of different subject matter altogether. I know plenty of photographers who never pick up their camera unless they're leaving town on a trip, and like that's where photography is in their life. That's what it is to them. It's, something they do when they're traveling, and while they're home, it's just not in their life, and it's going to look different for everybody. So me sharing that, I love living in a small town and a lot of my work is in Chillicothe, about Chillicothe, that's not like the way for everybody by any means. This is just what I like to do. So if you don't feel that inspiration or, motivation when you're looking at your hometown or your local surroundings, then just look elsewhere. Number 2, how do you use photography as a form of healing or processing things? This one was interesting for me because it's something that I'm still trying to always learn and understand more about, and just how I'm using photography and a camera to really sort of navigate life, but also just how I'm processing everything in real time. I've always made pictures of everyday life just as it happens, but it wasn't until the last couple of years where I've just started to slowly kind of break that down and change my relationship with how I view the photos in real time. I used to always be seeing the photos, even, if it was on film, it was being developed, scanned, and everything that same day. Nowadays, my time is very different, so it's not like that, but I've always just used the camera just in my day-to-day life and making pictures of whatever is around me. And I think for a lot of it, it's a way for me to sort of get out of my skin and out of myself and just sort of out of my head in a way. It's like a way for me to sort of escape a lot of the anxiety and OCD of everything. And as a way of processing things in real time, that's sort of always been there, but it wasn't until, recently where I've started to look back at my own record of things and how my memory has shifted and my views or my thoughts on things just based on, my feelings and my emotions, and then to look back at the pictures to see and feel how things change. I've been learning more and more this year about my brain injury in 2018 when I was sick with ehrlichiosis, and understanding the longer term effects of, traumatic traumatic brain injuries, just learning the long-term effects and understanding the longer-term effects, at least that I've seen personally for me, especially the year that happened and the years that followed. I'm healing and processing all of that still right now. And so the idea of photography and how it relates to that this was an interesting question for me specifically because that's been such a big part of my mental, focus, and just something I've been really thinking a lot about this year. Number 3, are you teaching your kids photography? I gave Elliot my Minolta XG-M, my very first camera. I gave him that last year, and he used that for a while, but the meter in that thing is just not working as it should. Even the advanced lever is starting to lock up from time to time. That was my very first camera, so it's, I think, officially going to be just on the shelf. But I did get him one of these little wide-angle point-and-shoot cameras. They've been rebranded and renamed a bunch of times. Like Vivitar, I know, used to make these little silver versions of it, but I had one of those when I was like a teenager, and I loved that little point and shoot camera. It's just a little plastic camera with a super wide lens, but I got one for Elliot, and he's been running around with that lately. So one of these days we're going to develop the film and see what he's got. But I'm not really teaching my kids photography, but it's been interesting to watch Elliot's just natural interest. I've been very like hesitant to like push it on him, because I don't want him to look at it as, you know, a chore or something he has to do, because if he's anything like me, then he'll never want anything to do with it. But it's been awesome to watch him just have a natural interest in photography like I did, and he's having fun with it. Number 4, what's your everyday carry outside of photography gear? It obviously depends on what I'm doing that day when I leave the house, but on any given day, if I'm leaving the house, the things that I always have with me would be my wallet. This is a Sleepwalk wallet, which it's the same people that make my camera straps. If you didn't know, I've got a signature camera strap. There's a wrist strap as well as a normal camera strap. Check those out, links down below. I'm a big fan myself. My Leatherman Wave, I use this all of the time. I've carried it with me every day for years, and no matter what I run into, I pretty much always find a use for this. My keys, which are also on this little Sleepwalk key loop, and finally a field notes and a pencil. Any pencil or paper will do, but I personally am partial to field notes or Rhodia dot pad paper, as well as the tactile turn pencil. If I remember to wear it, I'll also throw on my Apple Watch, but other than that, my iPhone, it's a 13 Pro. I've had it for, I think, over a year now. That's pretty much it. Number 5, how is the editing coming on your book project? You know, I was working with a specific goal or a specific idea in mind for this book, and you know, as I was working on a project sort of about home and about my local community, you know, where I'm from, where I live, also working on, you know, sort of a project, like just a personal project, not sure if it would even be anything, about leaving my previous home that we just moved out of, and sort of letting go of that feeling of home, and like all of the different details and things I've been working on sort of in different places. It's all sort of like come together in a way over the last few months, and it's been a good reminder to just let things happen naturally, and you know, when things just sort of like fall into place on their own, don't fight it. And last but not least, number 6, if it's not too personal to ask, how do you make money? Over the years, as a photographer, I've made a living different ways, everything from wedding photography to corporate stuff, headshots, family photos, engagements, band photos, just sort of an overall, like, what do you need photography for? I'll help you out, like that sort of thing. I've just always taken on photography jobs, and at different times over the last, I guess, 14 or 15 years, like it's been at different levels and different amounts in terms of like how much photography makes up my income. Starting out, I always worked other part-time jobs. I used to work for my dad, and then when he passed in 2017, I took over that business until I got sick and had to sell the business. But for the most part, it's always been a lot of different things. And in 2019, that was when I focused to just really like all photography based. So it was all YouTube, and then also my photography of weddings, corporate stuff, engagements, all of that. Not once did I expect to ever make a dime on YouTube, let alone for it to be able to, you know, be my full-time focus. And that's sort of where I'm at now. Right now, it's not like, you know, Google AdSense is how I make my money. It's doing what I do, being a photographer, but using my YouTube channel and just this audience, this community. This is how I'm able to kind of funnel all of the other aspects of my job. So AdSense, obviously, people watching the videos, everyone knows that's part of like how you make money on YouTube, but then also sponsors. Sponsors for me, if I didn't have sponsors on this channel, I wouldn't be doing this full time. I would still be doing either photography for hire or just completely other stuff altogether. When I say like I'm gonna pay some bills and thank our sponsors, I mean that. That's not like, you know, I'm having fun and stuff, but That's for real. That's why sponsors are there. And I try to take sponsors that like I actually believe in and use, because I try to have some integrity there. But sponsors are essentially paying for airtime. They're paying for advertisement. So as the channel grows, as the views grow, that sort of thing, sponsors, they're looking at that and they're, able to pay for that kind of advertisement and, what that's worth. So as things have grown, I never thought it would ever grow into anything, but thankfully, this is where I am. So I'm in a position where I have sponsors that I've worked with for years. I have the monthly, YouTube AdSense, which that's always up and down, and I'm not the person to ask on guidance for that, if you couldn't imagine. So the YouTube channel with AdSense and sponsors, those two things make up a significant portion of my income. And then on top of that, I have other things I can do to try and make extra supplemental income. Things like selling prints, making books, any of my own just sort of like self-publishing endeavors. All of that is really to just kind of go towards everything I'm doing here, as a photographer. I'm not a photographer for hire. I'm not selling, gallery prints or anything like that. I'm not represented by anybody. I'm about as DIY as it gets here. I'm just doing my thing with photography, and it's what I'm doing right now. In 10 years, in 5 years, I could be doing something totally different. Who knows? I'm just going to keep enjoying this and seeing where it takes me. I think understanding that photography for me is always going to be here, no matter if I'm sharing photos with anybody or not. That was something I kind of had to think about a lot this year. Making a living myself through this YouTube channel and just sharing my work. It's unbelievable. It still doesn't feel real, and I've legitimately struggled with that in ways. But letting go of the idea of, my work or my career or what I do, letting that be my worth or, the most important thing. Photography has been here. It'll always be here. And I'm grateful to be, just chasing photography and celebrating photography for a living. It's a beautiful thing. And I appreciate all of you who have been here with me watching these videos. And on that note of making money, the place where I've sold my book, sold prints, my zines, mattdayphoto.com. I made that website with today's sponsor, Squarespace. You guys already know I've been using Squarespace's service for years, way before they ever sponsored my channel, because they truly are the best all-in-one place to build a website. No matter what your needs are or what kind of business you run, Squarespace has something for everybody with all of the features you could possibly need built right in. For photography, it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's a great way to actually get your portfolio or a gallery or series of images together, rather than being just thrown together in the middle of some algorithm. On top of that, you could manage all of your email campaigns. You could run an online store selling physical or digital products. They're constantly adding new features and tools to Squarespace, and everything is incredibly easy to use. Of course, if you need help with anything, they have 24/7 award-winning customer service, so they're always ready to help. Try Squarespace out for yourself entirely free at squarespace.com, but when you're ready to sign up, go to squarespace.com/mattday. That'll get you 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. That's it for this video. I appreciate all of you sticking with me for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to keep the conversation going or have any other questions, leave them in the comments down below. That's it. I love you all very much. I hope you've had a great 2022. Let's have a good new year. I'll see you guys soon.